All right, folks, welcome back to Sociology. We're going to talk more about culture in this lecture, but it's going to be a little bit different, perhaps something you don't expect. But before we do, I do want to revisit what we've talked about the last couple of sessions on video. And so right up there is that graphic that I told you all on the first lecture of how important that was in the classes that I teach. And of course, over there, you see that's the makeup of culture. And so, what we want to think about is how does that fit into that up there? And what's kind of interesting about this is that you can take that diagram and put it in any of the major social institutions at the top. Because there's a culture in the workplace, there's a culture within the family, there's culture within education, there's culture within elementary schools and middle schools and high schools. So it really gets to be a lot to think about. But we're going to continue focusing on culture today. But what I want to do is give you a very broad look and really kind of delve into anthropology and archaeology a little bit. Social anthropology, perhaps, maybe be better for me to say that. I have a little bit of background on anthropology and archaeology, and when I was working in graduate school on my master's thesis, I had participated in international research. I conducted international research, and I lived in Mexico. And I lived there for about a half a year, and that's why I'm bilingual. And but it really, forced me to kind of see things from the cultural vantage point on the ground, qualitative research along with quantitative research. But it really was a rewarding experience, and I'm going to kind of bring some of that into the consideration as to what we're going to be talking about today, looking at sociocultural evolution. So we're not just going to focus on modern society. We're going to take a step back, way, way, way back. And we're not just going to think about, the United States or Europe or any place. We're thinking more generally about what it means to be human, okay? And so in order to do that, I'm going to pull up a couple of things here. Bear with me just a second. And we're going to look at sociocultural evolution in this manner. Let me fix my video here just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so sociocultural evolution. And so what we're talking about is social transformations of society. Now, we're going to look in just a moment about when did humans appear on the planet, okay, based upon the archaeological evidence, right? So we are the descendants of many other species, okay? I'm going to show you some of that in a moment. Again, this is based on the archaeological evidence. We really can trace that because our science around human origins has become so sophisticated over time. The technology has gotten better. We can carbon date artifacts that we find and know how old it is. But, anthropology in a historical sense is about, in order to understand people of a long, long time ago, we can't do that based on, what we see today, based on videos and like you're seeing right now, but it's based upon physical evidence that we find, artifacts, ceramics, or places where people used to live, or any number of physical artifacts, okay? But, thinking about modern society for a moment, I want to draw your attention to this down here. We're going to talk about this more when we get to chapter 4, social interaction in everyday life, okay? But, what this graph is walking you through are the major transformations over the course of human history, Homo sapiens. And that's about 300,000 years, okay? Homo sapiens, about 300,000 years. So the thing about culture is once physical culture is introduced, once we discover new things or create new things or innovate new things, it causes the way that we live to change. And there are a couple of instances over the course of human history, some innovation, some invention that were remarkable, and they changed the way that we live. And that's sociocultural evolution. So our understanding of how to domesticate plants and animals. And that's what hunting and gathering societies were. These early part of human origins, they're listed here as societies, but it probably would be better to think about these as groups. We didn't have large societies 300,000 years ago. They were more like small groups of nomads that went from place to place. They hunted food, and when that food source went to a watering hole, then they chased after the animal. Or they gathered plants, and once those plants were no longer available, they located to another location. They were nomads. Not many of these examples of culture around anymore. Okay, they've largely evolved. And evolution here could mean a number of different things. They've been conquered by explorers, or they learned and innovated, and their culture has changed over time. The invention of the plow meant that we could mass produce agricultural products. But, this is a 6,000 year time frame, and to agricultural societies, that is almost, 10,000 years or so, okay? So we lived as hunters and gatherers and horticultural societies for quite some time, for most of this graph. And sometimes this graph doesn't give justice to how long we lived in hunting and gathering groups, in horticultural, pastoral groups, up to agricultural societies. Agricultural societies didn't appear on the scene until about 6,000 years ago, over the course of 300,000 years. Okay, so the communities as we know ourselves to be now, the societies that we have on the planet, okay, are relatively new. Most people now live in a community. We used to be small populations around the planet. And then human population on the planet grew exponentially with the Industrial Revolution. And we're going to talk about population growth on the planet at the very end of the semester. But, this is, what we're talking about here. And the chapter on culture in your book covers this a lot. But what I want to do now is I want to talk a little bit more about sociocultural evolution and kind of delve a little bit into the archaeology and the anthropology of it all, okay? So I'm going to go out here on the internet, and this is a website, Britannica.com. And what you're looking at here is the evolution of humans over the course of history, okay? Let me enlarge that so you can see a little bit better. And yeah, there we go, okay? Oops, let me move it around here a tad bit, right there, all right? So what you're seeing right here, hold on just a second, let me get this to where I can see it. Okay, all right. Now you can hopefully see my cursor. I think you can. So this is Homo sapiens. This is us. And so over here, this at the very top, it's 0 to 4 million years. And what I just showed you is that we date back 300,000 years. So if you go halfway here, this would be 500,000 years. So here we are. Homo sapiens didn't appear on the planet until 300,000 years ago, okay? So we evolved from these creatures. Fascinating stuff. Well, how do we know that? Again, archaeological evidence, paleoanthropology. So Let me show you a couple of other things here. Some interesting look at evolution. Okay. All right. Now, it's a little bit difficult to see, but what it says up here, it says ages of major fossil and archaeological sites associated with recent Homo species. Okay. So Homo species can be Homo sapiens, Homo Neanderthal, and etc. Okay, so here we get into more like monkeys. Yeah, we evolved out of monkeys, chimpanzees. Okay, so let's go back here. And again, this is the major archaeological sites. These are where archaeologists find bones and various parts of ancient human existence. And so over here, this is found in the Asian Pacific area, European, Mediterranean. And what you're looking at here is what they have found and how long ago these artifacts existed. Okay, so this again is thousands of years ago. Okay, so you can see here we found these artifacts in Africa of Homo heidelbergensis. So that Homo heidelbergensis is this right here. And you got to think over time, some of this stuff is, deteriorates and falls apart. And, there's nothing going to be there. How else do we know about human history? From textbooks? Well, they didn't have textbooks a long time ago. So this is one way that we understand our past, is through archaeological work. And we know that Homo sapiens originated out of Central Africa. And that's based upon the archaeological evidence, okay? So let me show you this, the different locations here, okay? These are found in this area here. And then a lot of the the Neanderthals were located in this area. These are different archaeological sites that have found major stuff. Omo and Bodo were very important sites. Go back here and look at that. Okay, this right here, early Homo sapiens, again in Africa, okay? Now I want to take the liberty to kind of show you something here. Oops, didn't want to show you that. So I mentioned I spent time in Mexico, and one thing about Mexico is it's got a lot of artifacts. But before I show you that, this is a picture of me as a student at Owensboro Community College. So OCTC was Owensboro Community College before it was Owensboro Community and Technical College. And this picture was taken back around 1990. And I am in an archaeology class. And so, some of my interest in sociology began certainly at Owensboro Community College. And we used to have archaeology and anthropology classes, and we don't have those any longer, unfortunately. But this is me doing in an archaeological dig in Ohio County at Small House. And some of you might have heard about this place. So Small House was discovered to be sort of a central marketplace area in this region for Native Americans. And we found all kinds of artifacts there. I found one of the only flutes found in North America at that time. Really, completely blew me away when I found that, right? And so I continued on that path of an interest in some of archaeology. And here I am now in Mexico. This is actually taken back in 1995, 1996 time frame. So been about 25 years ago. And this is a historical bowling ball, right? So I'm going to show you a few different things here. And I mentioned there's a rich Native American history in Mexico. And this is a picture I took near the school where I was staying doing research of a small pyramid. Let me also show you, you're going to see a variety of, so one of the persons that I worked with there was showing me some of the different things that they found at that particular site. And this is, you know, a 6,000-year-old bowl of pottery. And what do these things tell us about people from the past? That's what archaeology enables us to do. This is always kind of striking, but they had found some human bones in this area, and you can see that's the skull of a human there. And that kind of blew me away. They asked me if I wanted to hold that, and I said, no, I think I'll pass. Here is yours truly sitting on top of a major pyramid in Mexico called Teotihuacan. It's in central Mexico. This is an ancient pyramid complex of the Aztecs in Mexico. Back there, you see the Temple of the Moon. An up-close shot of these. Here I am standing in front of Teotihuacan, a very large pyramid structure. And here I am standing in front of the Temple of the Moon, if it'll pull up. Try it again. There you go. So yeah, there's an interesting history of artifacts and anthropology around the world. One of the best museums, anthropology, archaeological museums in the world is located in Mexico City. That's my fiance at the time, and who's now my spouse. We've been here for a little while. She came to visit me while I was there. But I want to show you a couple of images from the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. These are some artifacts that they have found in different parts of Mexico. And they also have some artifacts from other parts of the world on display at this museum. Australia, it's hard for me to pronounce that, but I'll show you what that is. That is Australia, I think this right here, Pitheces, okay? So it's kind of fascinating to be able to see, you know, this stuff in life, in real life, you know. And of course, there's some great museums across the United States. New York City has a great natural history museum. Chicago has some museums. And of course, if you go to the Owensboro Museum, there are some artifacts that we have of this area located there, right? So that's just an introduction to, you know, some various aspects of anthropology, archaeology, and how that relates to what we're looking at here in terms of sociocultural evolution. And as I mentioned previously, we will look at more modern examples of culture and how it affects our social behavior. I'm trying to make that larger so you can see it. And I can't figure out where it is. I don't see it anywhere. Well, anyway. So the stuff, where are we at? Oh, I know where it is. Hold on a second. Hold on just one moment. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Try it again. All right, sorry about that. I'm navigating between screens and trying to get things to work, but it's right here. All right. So at the very bottom there, again, you see it says social networking and digital dualism, digital identity. So what I just showed you was largely this stuff here, okay? We'll get more focused on modern society as it relates to cell phones and Facebook and TikTok, and it's interesting to think, what are we leaving behind for future generations in terms of our own archaeological evidence, Theoretically speaking, videos and pictures, digital images can last forever as long as we save them. They don't deteriorate the way that paper and artifacts and those kinds of things might deteriorate, but just an interesting thing to think about if you take that in consideration. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to end right there, and thanks again for your attention, and see you next time.